While in the captivity of the terrorist organization, the Ten Rings, Tony Stark was forced to build one of his Jericho missiles for them. However, while working on the missile, Stark was secretly building an armored suit to escape with the help of his fellow captive, Ho Yinsen. Stark put the suit on and escaped the compound, but was forced to leave without Yinsen, who died of fatal gunshot wounds, buying time for Stark to power up the armor. Once Stark exited the cave, he used the suit's flamethrowers to destroy the Ten Rings stockpile of his own Stark Industries weapons. While setting the camp ablaze, the suit suffered damage from enemy gunfire, causing some of the suit's systems to malfunction or fail. With the suit nearing failure, Stark then used the suit's rudimentary rocket thrusters to escape the enemy camp just before the weapons detonated. Stark managed to escape, but at the cost of the armor, which he was forced to leave behind. Once he returned to America, he used the suit's schematics to create a more advanced version of what he later referred to as the Ironman Suit. The remains of the Mark I were located in the desert by the remainder of the Ten Rings, who retrieved its pieces and roughly reassembled it according to Tony Stark's see-through schematics to examine its design. Later, during a secret meeting with the Ten Rings, Obadiah Stane stole the Mark I suit and used its design as the basis for his own Ironmonger. So both the first ever named Iron Man suit and Ironmonger were built on the basis of the Mark I suit. Although the Monger suit was the true design of Mark I, as it was nothing more or less from what Tony actually wanted Mark I to be, this suit had some value to Tony, so he recollected the remains of his original design of the Mark I suit and rebuilt it bit by bit. Upon returning from captivity in Afghanistan, Tony Stark began designing the Mark I armor, drastically revamping the design of the Mark I using the resources and technology available to him through his company. Stark started building this suit in stages, experimenting with new technology, mainly to improve the suit's flight capabilities. Working from his basement workshop, Stark started by creating a pair of thruster boots, quickly followed by a pair of palm-based repulsor gauntlets to stabilize his flight. Once Stark had perfected the flight thrusters and repulsors, he went on to create the armor of the suit itself, making it sleeker and more aerodynamic than the Mark I, with articulated control flaps for added flight control and stability. He also created a user interface. During his first control test, Stark decided to take the Mark II on its first full test flight despite JRVIS's recommendations. His flight proved to be an outstanding success until testing the suit's altitude limit, during which it demonstrated a near-fatal icing problem in the higher altitude. James Rhodes later noticed the Mark I after helping Tony Stark prepare to fight against Ironmonger. Once Tony left, Rhodes contemplated using the Mark I but opted against it and left, promising to one day use it. While dealing with palladium poisoning caused by his arc reactor and his impending death, Stark gave in to his frustrations and got drunk during his birthday party, putting on his Mark IV armor and using it to show off in a reckless manner, endangering several of his party guests. Concerned over Stark's apparent irresponsibility and the safety of those present, James Rhodes donned the Mark I suit and confronted Stark as promised to himself, erupting into a brawl that caused massive property damage to Tony Stark's mansion and nearly injured several guests. After their fight reached a standoff, Stark and Rhodes fired their repulsors at one another, resulting in a repulsor explosion that destroyed a large portion of Stark's house. Rhodes left standing over his dazed friend, then departed with the Mark I armor, and he flew to Edwards Air Force Base, turning it over to the United States Armed Forces under his supervision. The U.S. Armed Forces then proceeded to have the suit weaponized using guns and munitions provided by Justin Hammer, effectively transforming the Mark II into the war machine. Nearly perfecting his Mark I armor, Tony Stark discovered a nearly fatal icing problem in the suit during a high-altitude test flight, so he decided to move on and develop the Mark I suit. Stark solved the suit's icing problem by using a gold titanium alloy from an earlier satellite design that wasn't prone to freezing. He also opted to integrate a new miniaturized weapon system that was concealed by the suit's exterior plating. Once the armor was ready for assembly, JRVIS showed Stark a preview of the finalized design. Stark disliked the armor's new coloring due to the new materials used, so he personalized it with a red paint job. Tony Stark learned that his supposedly discontinued weapons, including a set of his Jericho missiles, were being used by the Ten Rings to terrorize Gomira, the home village of Ho Yinsen, and watched a news report about it as he worked on the Mark II's repulsors. While doing so, he accidentally discovered the palm repulsors can be used as offensive weapons. Stark donned the armor and went off to fight the terrorists. Stark arrived at Gomira and swiftly defeated the Ten Rings that held him hostage before and destroyed all of their weapons. Doing so, however, called the military's attention, so they sent 2 F-22 fighter jets to investigate. Stark tried to evade and lose the jets but accidentally downed one of them after crashing into its wing, prompting the military to step up its assault. However, Stark was able to prove he isn't a threat after revealing his identity to his friend Lieutenant Colonel James Rhodes and saving the pilot of the downed F-22, whose parachute didn't deploy upon ejecting. The whole incident was later written off to the public as an unfortunate training accident. Sometime later, Tony Stark was confronted by Obadiah Stane, who paralyzed him with a sonic taser and took the advanced arc reactor from his chest in order to power his own reversed-engineered Ironmonger armor. Stark struggled to retrieve his older arc reactor to save his life and suited up in the Mark II. He flew to the Stark Industries building to confront Stane and save Pepperpot. Despite having to use the older, weaker arc reactor, Stark was able to hold his own against Stane's heavier, weapons-laden suit as their battle spread to the nearby streets. The Iron Man armor, Mark IV, was Tony Stark's fourth Iron Man suit, created to replace the Mark II after it was heavily damaged during the fight with Obadiah Stane. As it was not created with specific upgrades in mind, the Mark IV is very similar to the Mark EU, with only minor changes such as upgraded weapons capabilities. When the Mark I suffered irreparable damage in Tony Stark's battle with Obadiah Stane's Ironmonger armor, Stark built the Mark IV suit to replace it, becoming the primary suit that Stark used in all of his activities as Iron Man. During the Stark Expo, Stark airdropped to the main presentation stage in the Mark IV suite to make a grand entrance and give the opening speech. Sporting a tuxedo underneath the armor, due to the stress of slowly being poisoned by the palladium in his arc reactor, Stark got drunk while wearing the Mark IV armor at his birthday party, believing it may be his last, and put several of his party guests in danger. Concerned about the safety of the party guests and the controversy an incident may cause, Stark's friend Lieutenant Colonel James Rhodes donned the Mark U and intervened, ordering the guests to leave and for his friend to desist in his reckless behavior. Stark and Rhodes then engaged in a fight through Tony Stark's mansion, which ends with Stark being narrowly outmatched and Rhodes taking the Mark II for the United States Air Force. Having nearly failed to save Pepper Potts when fighting Obadiah Stane in Los Angeles, Tony Stark began working on making the Iron Man armor more portable. Stark believed he had figured it out with the Mark V, which could be stored in a briefcase-sized bundle at the expense of having less weapon. 30 minutes before flying to Monaco, Stark finished assembling the Mark V. A hologram of the Mark V armor's briefcase form could be seen among the various holograms Tony Stark was examining when Pepper Potts visited him in his workshop. The Mark V was first seen at the Circuit de Monaco in its briefcase configuration, handcuffed to Happy Hogan, who was guarding it so that it could not easily be stolen. When Whiplash attacked Stark during the Monaco Grand Prix, Stark was caught on the track, defenseless, until Hogan and Potts managed to get to him with the Mark V. Stark used the Mark V armor to defend himself against Whiplash and narrowly managed to defeat him despite the suit's reduced combat abilities, receiving large amounts of damage to the suit. Sometime after the battle, the Mark V was repaired and kept in Stark's Hall of Armor with the other classics. When Stark's mansion was attacked by Mandarin's forces, it was destroyed due to damage to the mansion's systems, causing the suit to explode. The suit was made up of a multitude of individual miniature plates. This resulted in a much lighter suit that was also capable of folding into a briefcase. When the briefcase was activated, Stark inserted his hands into the sockets and lifted the assembly onto his chest. The suit automatically assembled around his body in a matter of seconds. Superhuman strength, the armor increases the user's strength to the point where Stark was able to kick a car out of the way, seemingly effortless. While wearing the armor, Stark was also able to easily crush Venko's arc reactor in one hand. The Iron Man armor. Mark 42 is an autonomous prehensile propulsion suit that is Tony Stark's 42nd Iron Man suit and was built to serve as his main Iron Man armor following the Battle of New York and the construction of the Iron Legion. Designed for automatic deployment and assembly, the suit is composed of several separate sections that can collapse into small pods. Using an independent propulsion system, each section can fly to the user and automatically assemble on their person. The suit was also designed to be summoned at any time, responding to impulses relayed by microchips implanted in Tony Stark's left arm. The Mark 42 never became finalized, as it was still in its testing phase when Stark was forced to start using it, thus it retained some design flaws in the weapons system and other functions. Tony Stark built the Mark 42 sometime after the Battle of New York. It was first used in action when the Mandarin attacked his house. Stark used the suit to mentally suit Pepper Potts up in it to protect her from mortal danger during the attack. Pepper then made her way out of the mansion with Maya Hansen. When Pepper was clear of the explosions, Stark had the armor detach itself from her and donned it himself. Since it was at 22% power, Stark had a difficult time defending himself. Nonetheless, he still managed to take down 2 of the 3 assault helicopters that were attacking. However, when he destroyed the second chopper, it came flying at him, sending Stark into the water. Later, in the battle against Aldrich Killian, it responded to Tony Stark's anxiety and flew to him shortly after the Mark 42 destruction. It was used by Tony Stark to trap Killian against a wall. In an attempt to kill Killian, Stark had JRVIS activate the Mark 42 self-destruct. The resulting explosion was so powerful that although Killian survived, it destroyed most of the oil platform. Tony Stark was first seen wearing the suit during the attack on the Hydra research base in Sokovia, using its missiles to destroy the base's shields. This allowed Stark to infiltrate the base and retrieve Loki's scepter. Later on, Stark used the armor during the battle at the salvage yard, allowing him to fight and overpower Ultron before summoning the Mark to fight Hulk. In an alternate universe, Tony Stark arrived at the Nexus Internet Hub in Oslo, Norway, in his suite, where Ultron was attempting to access the nuclear codes. He confronted Ultron, but fell victim to Ultron's newfound power. After Banner, Thor, and Captain America were killed, an injured Stark in the suit begged Ultron to stop since he was created to ensure peace. However, Ultron stated that he was merely bringing about evolution and that Stark's wishes weren't what Ultron wanted. Ultron then killed Stark with a shockwave and activated the nuclear codes, launching nuclear missiles around the world, destroying the hub and the suit. This suit was outfitted with the latest version of Tony Stark's repulsor technology. The palm-mounted repulsors assist with flight operation, providing lift and positive flight control, but also possess offensive functionality, firing high-density beams of highly charged muons for a concussive attack. It is capable of blasting through 3 feet of concrete. Similar to the Mark 42, the Mark 45 parts also attaches to an authorized user when summoned, such as when Tony Stark summoned Disarmor's right forearm gauntlet to safely retrieve Loki's scepter from behind an energy field during a raid on a Hydra base in Sokovia. Various parts were also shown to attach to Tony during the activation of Vision. When Wanda Maximoff manipulated Dr. Bruce Banner into turning into Hulk, Tony Stark had no other choice but to deploy the system, as all of the other Avengers with the exception of Hawkeye were incapacitated. The armor was deployed from Veronica and came split into 2 separate parts. The first part was a metal containment shell, which helped to confine Hulk for a brief period of time. The enraged Hulk had soon managed to break himself free, ordering the South African police to stand down from the fight. Iron Man tried to get through to Bruce Banner by telling him that Wanda Maximoff had disrupted his mind with utter rage, telling him that Banner was stronger and smarter than her. However, the mention of Banner's name only seemed to enrage Hulk even further. When all of Iron Man's attempts to calm Hulk had failed, the two began to fight. Hulk launched a car at Iron Man, knocking him back, so Iron Man responded by flying to Hulk and dragging him face first through the concrete. When Hulk damaged the armor, Stark called for extra parts and used its many capabilities to try to knock Hulk down. With Hulk charging at him, Iron Man kept him at bay with his gauntlet beam while his arm was repaired. Hulk charged forward and the pair smashed their fists into each other, causing a shockwave through Johannesburg. Pinning Hulk to the ground, Iron Man began repeatedly punching him in the face and begging him to go to sleep and finish their fight. However, Hulk's rage only continued to build. Iron Man attempted to trap his arm with the armor and fly him out of the city in order to protect the people, with Hulk still fighting back. Veronica replacement parts. Should the Hulkbuster armor sustain heavy damage, Veronica hovering above the armor will respond to the authorized user's command by sending spare parts to replace the ones that were damaged. For instance, when Hulk drove a pole into the Hulkbuster's left arm and severely damaged it, upon the command of Stark, Veronica releases several armor parts that would form an alternate left arm for the armor. Tony Stark created the Mark L armor by relying on nanotechnology. The suit was entirely contained in a detachable housing unit of nanoparticles, which could deploy over Stark's body with a simple push on it. While Stark and Pepper Potts were jogging, Potts remarked on how the fact that Stark had built another suit of armor was a sign that he did not really want to start a family and settle down. When Cull Obsidian and Ebony Maw arrived in New York City and demanded the Time Stone, Tony Stark, along with Doctor Strange, Bruce Banner, and Wong, refused and ordered them to leave. This prompted Cull Obsidian to attack and charge at them, and as Banner was unable to transform into the Hulk, Iron Man decided to fight Cull Obsidian himself and revealed his new Mark L armor. He then created a shield to protect himself from Cull Obsidian's attacks and punched him in the face. He then shot him with his cluster cannon, causing Cull Obsidian to be projected back to Ebony Maw. Upon seeing this, Banner expressed complete amazement at the new armor. Ebony Maw then attacked Iron Man, sending him across the city and out of Greenwich Village. Iron Man came back delivering another attack in the form of a blade manifested from his suit, but Cull Obsidian, who had just recovered, threw his hammer at Iron Man, knocking him through a building and into a tree. Iron Man then continued attacking Cull Obsidian with powerful repulsor blasts until Spider-Man entered the fight to assist Iron Man. Iron Man ordered Spider-Man to save Dr. Strange from Ebony Maw, who successfully captured Strange and took him to his Q-ship. While Iron Man was trapped and Cull Obsidian prepared to strike the final blow, Wong teleported Cull Obsidian to Antarctica. Iron Man then launched himself at full speed to save Spider-Man, who was on the Q-ship as it was entering space.